The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was silent. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in their floating seats, their eyes fixed on the towering figure at the center. Chancellor Xelfar of the Zordian Empire. His voice echoed through the vast hall, filled with authority and cold certainty. For 3,000 years, we have known peace, but today we face a threat that cannot be ignored: humanity. Murmurs spread through the assembly like ripples in water. Some nodded in agreement, while others shifted uncomfortably. The humans had been part of the galactic community for centuries, always growing, always advancing. They were once seen as insignificant, a young species from a backwater planet, but they had proven everyone wrong. They are too dangerous, Xelfar continued, his eyes scanning the room. They expand faster than any species. Their technology evolves unpredictably. Their minds. He paused, his tendrils curling in unease. Are unlike anything we have ever encountered. If we do not act now, we will be at their mercy within a century. A representative from the Ultari race stood up, his pale, translucent skin glowing under the chamber's artificial lights. Chancellor, humanity has never attacked us. They follow our laws. They contribute to our trade. Why should we betray them? Xelfar's mandibles twitched in frustration. Because they do not fear us. That makes them dangerous. We have ruled this galaxy for millennia, yet humans act as if we are equals. That cannot be allowed. A large screen in the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing a map of human expansion. Colonies stretched far beyond what any species had achieved in such a short time. Their fleets were increasing in numbers and strength. Their influence was spreading. A deep, rumbling voice interrupted the discussion. You fear them because you do not understand them. The room turned toward High Chancellor Orlan, the oldest member of the council. His reptilian eyes studied the others with calm wisdom. War with humanity is not a decision to take lightly. We know their history. They do not surrender. If we strike first, we may unleash something we cannot control. Silence fell over the chamber. Everyone remembered the old reports. The Terran wars, the resilience of human soldiers, the way they always found a way to win. Xelfar exhaled sharply. We do not need a war. We need a solution. A final solution. His eyes gleamed with cold determination. We strike hard. We strike fast. We give them no chance to fight back. A vote was called. The chamber's lights dimmed as holographic symbols appeared before each representative. One by one, they cast their votes. When the results appeared, the decision was clear. War had been declared. A message was drafted and sent to Earth. It contained only a few words, but its meaning was undeniable. Surrender or face annihilation. Far away, on a blue and green world orbiting a yellow sun, humanity received the message, and their answer would shake the galaxy. The message arrived at the heart of Earth's defense network, flashing across secure channels with chilling clarity. Humanity's leaders gathered in the War Council chamber, their faces set in stone as they read the ultimatum from the Galactic Council. The air was thick with tension, but no one in the room looked afraid, only determined. Admiral Cole, a veteran of countless skirmishes, leaned forward, his fingers tapping against the metal table. They think we'll kneel, he muttered, voice laced with disdain. They think we'll just roll over and let them erase us. Across from him, President Lorna Vasquez studied the message, then slowly tore the printed copy in half, letting the pieces flutter onto the table. Then they don't know us at all, she said, her voice cold and resolute. Murmurs of agreement swept through the room. Humanity had faced countless hardships, had risen from wars, disasters, and near extinction. They were not a species that surrendered. A deep voice cut through the room as General Huxley, commander of the Terran Defense Forces, spoke. We need to respond. We need to show them that we are not prey. His eyes swept across the gathered leaders. We all know what's at stake. This isn't just about survival. It's about making sure they never think they can do this again. Across the room, A communications officer hesitated before speaking. "Madam President, we intercepted additional transmissions from the Council. They are confident. Too confident. Their fleets are already moving toward our colonies." A holographic display flickered to life, showing red markers spreading across human-occupied space like a disease. The Council wasn't waiting for a response. They had already decided humanity's fate. Silence settled over the chamber, heavy and oppressive. And then, with quiet finality, President Vasquez spoke the words that would mark the beginning of the most defining war in galactic history. "Then let's teach them fear." With a single nod, she authorized the full mobilization of the United Human Fleet. Across the Sol system, warships stirred to life, their massive engines roaring as they prepared for the inevitable battle. Factories switched into overdrive, producing weapons, armor, and war machines at an unprecedented pace. Special forces teams were deployed, moving in the shadows, gathering intelligence, preparing for sabotage missions deep within enemy territory. The galaxy had mistaken humanity's patience for weakness. They had mistaken diplomacy for submission. But now, they would see what humans truly were. Not prey, not subjects, but warriors forged in fire. And they would fight until the stars themselves burned. The first battle came faster than expected. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's ability to react, assuming that the Terran Defense Forces would scramble in panic. But as their fleets moved toward the outer human colonies, they found no terrified civilians begging for mercy. Instead, they found cold, calculated resistance. The first engagement took place near the colony of Epsilon Prime, a thriving world on the edge of human space. The Council's fleet, a massive armada of battleships and dreadnoughts, surged forward with arrogant confidence. They had spent millennia refining war, developing strategies that had crushed countless civilizations before. Humanity, they believed, would be no different. But when they arrived, they didn't find a scattered defense. They found a fortress. Humanity had learned from history. They had studied the mistakes of those who had fallen before them. The moment the Council's war declaration came through, every colony had activated wartime protocols, fortifying their defenses and preparing for the inevitable attack. Epsilon Prime was no exception. Massive orbital defense platforms hummed to life, their railguns locking onto targets with deadly precision. Automated drone swarms patrolled the skies, and hidden missile silos on the planet's surface lay in wait. The Council fleet, expecting an easy conquest, sent a transmission. "Surrender, and you will be spared." The response was immediate. A single transmission was sent back, broadcast in every language the galaxy knew. "Come and take it." The Council ships advanced, weapons charging, shields raised. The battle began with a brutal exchange of fire, blue plasma lancing through the darkness, missiles screaming toward their targets. The sky over Epsilon Prime became a storm of death. But the humans fought like no species the Council had ever encountered before. They didn't fight with fear. They didn't fight with desperation. They fought with precision, strategy, and cold, ruthless efficiency. Human warships moved in coordinated packs, overwhelming larger enemy ships by striking at their weak points. Fighters swarmed around dreadnoughts, exploiting gaps in their defenses. AI-assisted targeting systems predicted enemy movements before they happened, allowing human gunners to strike with unerring accuracy. The battle raged for hours. Council ships began to fall, one after another, their mighty warships reduced to burning wreckage. Human ground forces launched counter-offensives, using advanced guerrilla tactics to strike at invading troops. Civilians didn't cower. They armed themselves, setting traps, ambushing enemy patrols, making every inch of land a death trap. The Council had expected an easy victory. Instead, they were witnessing a slaughter, one where they were the prey. As their fleet dwindled, their commanders realized their mistake. Humanity was not like the others. They were not weak. They were not fragile. They were something else entirely. And as the last Council ship retreated from the battlefield, leaving wreckage and bodies behind, A chilling realization settled upon them. They had started a war with a species that would not stop. Not until the Council itself was nothing but dust. The Galactic Council was in shock. The defeat at Epsilon Prime was not just a setback, it was a disaster. Reports flooded in from their surviving ships, each more horrifying than the last. The humans had not only repelled the attack, but they had utterly humiliated one of the strongest fleets in the galaxy. The loss of so many warships, so many experienced officers, and so many soldiers in a single battle was unheard of. But the worst part, the humans weren't celebrating. They weren't gloating. They weren't negotiating. They were preparing for war. The Council scrambled to react. Emergency meetings were called, strategies revised, fleets recalled from distant territories. Every race that had aligned with the Council was suddenly faced with a terrifying realization. The enemy they had provoked was not going to sit back and wait for another attack. Then the first counterstrike came. It was swift, brutal, unrelenting. The first target was a Council military outpost in neutral space, a heavily fortified station. It was believed to be impenetrable, guarded by a fleet that had seen countless wars. The officers stationed there laughed at the idea of a human retaliation. They are still primitive, they assured themselves. Their victory at Epsilon Prime was luck. Then the humans arrived. They didn't announce themselves. There was no declaration, no warning. One moment, the station's sensors were clear. The next, a human fleet was already inside their defense perimeter. Not approaching, already there. The humans had perfected teleportation warfare. The outpost's alarms blared, officers shouting in confusion. Ships scrambled to respond, but it was already too late. The humans weren't just attacking. They were executing a flawless, premeditated extermination. The station's outer defenses were obliterated within seconds. Human ships, smaller than the massive dreadnoughts of the Council, weaved between enemy fire with impossible agility. Their weapons cut through shielding like it wasn't even there. Human Marines, clad in advanced combat exosuits, boarded the station within minutes, overwhelming defenders with cold precision. They fought without hesitation, without mercy. The officers who had laughed before were now screaming for reinforcements that would never arrive. And just as quickly as they came, the humans left. The station, once a proud symbol of Council power, was now a smoldering wreck, drifting lifelessly in space. No survivors, no mercy. The Council panicked. They had expected war, but not like this. Humanity didn't fight like the other species they had conquered. There were no prolonged sieges, no unnecessary battles of attrition. There was no time to react, no time to strategize. Humanity fought like an apex predator, striking fast, killing efficiently, and vanishing before their enemy could even understand what had happened. And then the broadcasts started. Across every Council world, on every communication network, a message played. A human general stood in a darkened war room, his face calm, his voice steady. "You declared war on humanity," he said. "Now we will show you what war truly means." Across the galaxy, fear spread like wildfire. Council civilians, once confident in their government's strength, began whispering in terror. Military leaders questioned if they had made a mistake. The Council itself began to fracture, some races wondering if siding with humanity might be a better option than facing their wrath. But there was no stopping it now. The war had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The Galactic Council's desperation was beginning to show. Their war fleets were in disarray, scrambling to reinforce vulnerable territories. Every attempt to launch a counteroffensive against humanity ended in disaster. The humans were striking faster than the Council could react, teleporting their fleets into strategic locations, obliterating key targets, and vanishing before reinforcements could even arrive. It was warfare beyond anything the Council had ever faced. And now, the humans were no longer just attacking military targets. The first planetary assault came without warning. A Council-controlled world, Veskar 4, was a fortress planet, home to billions and protected by orbital defense platforms, ground-based anti-ship cannons, and an entire fleet stationed in its orbit. It was supposed to be impenetrable. It wasn't. The attack started when every defense system on the planet suddenly went dark. Communications were jammed, targeting systems scrambled, automated turrets shut down. Before the planetary authorities could react, the skies were filled with human ships. But they didn't bombard the cities. They didn't lay waste to the planet from orbit. They landed. Human drop pods rained down from the sky, slamming into the ground like meteors. Out of them emerged soldiers in advanced combat exosuits, moving in perfect coordination. The defenders fought back, but it didn't matter. The humans weren't just stronger or better equipped. They were smarter. They jammed enemy communications, disrupted chain of command, and took control of key infrastructure within hours. The entire planet fell in a single day. The Council watched in horror as human forces systematically took over Veskar 4. But the real nightmare came when the humans did something unexpected. They didn't kill the civilians. They didn't massacre the surrendered soldiers. Instead, they'd broadcasted a message across the galaxy. A council governor, captured and trembling before a human officer, was forced to read from a script. His voice was unsteady as he spoke. "The Galactic Council has lied to you. We claimed humanity was a threat to peace, but the truth is, we are the aggressors. We started this war, and now humanity has come for justice." The message spread like wildfire. Council citizens, once believing they were fighting a righteous war, now questioned everything. Protests erupted on Council worlds. Some planets refused to send reinforcements. Some even attempted to negotiate with the humans in secret. And then, the final blow came. A Council war fleet, one of the last remaining strongholds of their military power, was mobilized to strike back at humanity. It was meant to be a decisive battle, a chance to turn the tide. But before they could even begin their attack, something unthinkable happened. Half the fleet, hundreds of warships, turned against the Council. They defected. Humanity had not just been fighting a war. They had been waging psychological warfare, spreading fear, sowing doubt, breaking the unity of the Council from within. And now, the Council was crumbling. But humanity wasn't done yet. They weren't just going to win the war. They were going to end the Galactic Council. Forever. The Galactic Council was unraveling. The once mighty rulers of the stars, who had held power for thousands of years, were now on the brink of collapse. Their fleets were shattered, their armies divided, and their people no longer believed in their leadership. But the true horror was yet to come, because humanity had decided that simple victory wasn't enough. The Council's remaining leaders gathered in a hidden stronghold, deep in the core systems, protected by the most advanced defenses in the galaxy. They believed this fortress world, Valtraxis, would be their last stand, a place where they could regroup and plan a desperate counterattack. They were wrong. One by one, their last allies abandoned them. Defections spread like wildfire. Council worlds declared neutrality, refusing to send ships or supplies. Former loyalists went silent. Even entire fleets disappeared, their crews either surrendering or vanishing into the unknown. The Council leaders, once arrogant and untouchable, now lived in fear, hiding behind their last remaining warships, sending out desperate pleas for help that were met with silence. And then, the final message arrived. A human transmission, broadcasted directly into the Council's most secure chambers. A single sentence, spoken in flawless galactic standard. "The war is over. Surrender now." Panic erupted. Some demanded negotiations. Others screamed for retaliation. But the reality was clear. There was no retaliation left to give. Humanity had won. Then the stars above Valtraxis changed. It started as a ripple, a distortion in space, and then, in an instant, the sky was filled with shadows, massive objects blocking out the light of distant suns. The council leaders stared in horror as an entire armada of human warships materialized right above their stronghold, emerging from hyperspace with impossible precision. It wasn't just a fleet. It was the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. Every council defense was rendered useless before they could even activate. Jamming signals flooded their systems, communications blacked out, targeting arrays shut down. The most advanced fortifications in the galaxy were nothing before the sheer might of humanity. The humans didn't fire immediately. They waited. They let the fear sink in. Then a single ship descended, a massive dreadnought, larger than any warship the Council had ever built. From its hull, drop pods rained down, and within minutes, human soldiers had breached the capital. The Council's guards barely put up a fight. Some surrendered instantly. Others ran. A few tried to resist and were swiftly cut down. And finally, the last surviving members of the Council were dragged before a human commander. There was no negotiation. No desperate plea would save them now. The war was over, and humanity had made its decision. The Council would never rise again. As the execution orders were given, a final transmission was sent across the galaxy, a warning, a declaration, a truth carved into history forever. This is what happens to those who dare to challenge humanity. The once mighty Galactic Council no longer existed. Its leaders had been executed, its fleets annihilated, and its empire shattered beyond repair. The war that had started with arrogance and hubris had ended in absolute devastation. But humanity was not done yet. Across the galaxy, the remnants of the Council's influence still lingered. Pockets of resistance, hidden bases, and fractured warlords who refused to accept reality. They believed that humanity's wrath had reached its peak, that the destruction of Valtraxis had been the final blow. They were wrong. Humanity did not merely seek victory. They sought permanence. The skies of former Council worlds darkened as human ships arrived in overwhelming force. No longer was this a war of conquest. It was a restructuring of the galaxy itself. The old ways, the corruption, the inefficiency of the Council were erased piece by piece. Those who had once ruled through fear and deceit now faced an unstoppable force that allowed no room for their schemes. Planet by planet, system by system, humanity made it clear. The era of the Galactic Council was over. The age of humanity had begun. Resistance leaders, once defiant, began surrendering without a fight. Entire fleets defected, their officers knowing they had no chance against human firepower. The remaining warlords flood into the void, seeking refuge in the darkest corners of space. But humanity's reach extended far beyond what they had ever imagined. There was nowhere left to hide. Some alien species feared enslavement, but they quickly learned that humanity did not conquer in the traditional sense. They did not demand tribute, nor did they install puppet rulers. Instead, they built. They repaired what the war had broken, turned desolate battlefields into thriving worlds, and established a new order where power was not held by a corrupt few, but shared among those who had survived. It was not mercy, it was calculation. A galaxy under humanity's guidance would never again fall into the chaos of the old Council's rule. The mistakes of the past would not be repeated. For the first time in history, there was no more war, no more backstabbing politics, no more oppression hidden behind false diplomacy. The stars belonged to humanity now, and they would ensure that the galaxy never forgot what had happened to those who had dared to challenge them. As the last remnants of the old order crumbled, a final broadcast was sent across every known system. The war is over. There will be no second chance. The galaxy belongs to us now.